Hey guys. Okay. Good morning. I am going to give a presentation, obviously. I hope you guys are well. This is the second day. Are you guys fine? You guys rested? Sharp? Good. Was today a good day? Was yesterday a good day, actually? Yeah, that's cool. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and kind of how I came up with the ideas that I'm going to present to you today. And then we're going to get into the idea specifically. You told something about a mastermind, so I was thinking about doing 10 minutes of Q&A at the end. If the mastermind is there, I'm not sure if that's useful. So we'll see at the end. But usually it's really useful to go back and forth with what specifically you guys have challenges with, and then to answer it with the presentation. Because I have a big presentation. I'm not going to go through all of it. But usually people ask questions, and then I kind of reference to the things that are most useful. So just a couple of questions before I start. I would like everybody to raise their hand. This is not a Tony Robbins event, but just think about it like that. How many of you have been to the Tony Robbins event? Well, you laughed. You probably have been. Have you been to a Tony Robbins event?
No.
But you guys know how it is. Like, everybody in the field, like, say yeah, whatever, right? So it's not that, but I would like everybody to raise their hand, okay? So how many of you are owning their own business? Cool. How many of you are employees in a position of executive, like director or manager of marketing or anything? Okay, who is not in one of those categories? What do you do? Musician. Got it. So account director. Who else?
Small cog in very big field.
Okay, so enterprise. Got it. Who else? Got it, but not executive level. Cool. So are you in a big agency or a big kind of like B2C? Big technology company. Cool. Who is B2B? Who's B2C? B2C first. Okay. B2B, everybody else. Duh. Cool. So till now, the questions have been very smart. Okay, cool. So I have 2 more questions, and then we'll get with the presentation. Who here has an acquisition problem? Like their main problem, the main goal, especially for like, let's say Q4 and then 2020, is to acquire more customers. That's your problem. Okay. Who doesn't raise their hand on that question? Like, who doesn't have that problem? The musician, because I play concerts in this thing. It's not a joke. So what problem do you have? You can talk about both. You can talk about both, but speak into that because it's fun.
For the company, no, we're full. We don't have capacity
to take in more clients.
Yeah. Taking more clients for us, no.
But for the clients?
For the clients, yeah, obviously, yeah, of course, yeah. So I was unsure to raise the hand or not.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. You guys have to be a great agency if you're full capacity. Cool. Who else doesn't have an acquisition problem? There was like some other hands risen. Nobody else? Cool. So, damn, man, I cannot address your issue because nobody else has it. Well, the agency level, B2B. Cool. So, a little bit of a backstory, and then we'll get into the, the presentation. I started in marketing when I was 15 years old, when my parents had to sign the contracts for me, and it was fairly embarrassing. But for me, it felt great. I was always curious. Maybe till I was 14 and a half, I never read a book in my life. I thought books are for losers. And if I'm a cool guy, or in any case a cool gal, whatever you might think, I should not read. That's for losers. And I had this kind of like macho image of myself, and I never got into that. And I had all these creative ways of getting around school to be able to pass and get my grades, but I never actually learned anything. But my creative skills were really high because you had to be fairly creative. And this is actually, there's some funny studies on this, that school actually trains people's creativity to go around the rules, which is quite disappointing. But school here, how many, most of you are from here, from Amsterdam or around, or? Where are you guys from? I'm coming from China. No, that's not a Chinese accent at all, actually. Okay, I think it's an Indian accent. Any case, so where are you guys from? UK or? Just shout some countries out. Got it. So you guys flew in for this conference. Got it. Finland. I love Finland. You guys have a lot of fun. You guys know how to have fun. And rock. That's God. Cool. Okay, so I don't know where I started with that, but the point is I got through school not learning that much conventionally speaking, and I was always secretly passionate about people and about psychology. I always knew this about myself, but never really investigated because it wasn't cool. And that was what I wanted to sustain. I wanted to sustain my cool image. But when I was about 15 and a half, I went to this movie, and somebody referenced me to this book about subconscious marketing. And for the first time ever in my life, and I'm sure all of you guys had this moment at some point, if you're doing something that you like, I'm sure you do, you've had this moment when you were curious about something without anybody else having you to do that thing, right? So, I have a lot of friends that their parents have them go to med school, for example, and they hate it. So that's the opposite example. What I mean is when you actually want to learn about something, want to do something for intrinsic reasons that don't depend on anything else. And for me, psychology and that book, which took me like 4 months to read because I couldn't read, obviously, which is quite, like you don't tell your friends that. You like, how long did it took you to write that book? Oh no, like 3 days, like 4 months, and I had to read every page like 4 or 5 times because I ended up reading it, but then I didn't remember anything, and I was like, what is this thing I have called brain? Because that is not working. But I hadn't really used it till I was 15, it seems. At least those parts of the brain. In any case, I fast forward a year and a half, I read about 150 books on psychology, personal development, got shouted at by Tony Robbins in all of those books. And a lot of other people. And one of the people that really inspired me was this guy called Bob Proctor, who was in this movie called The Secret. I'm not sure if you guys are into that, but it's like this law of attraction thing, which is not super scientific at all, but it's actually pretty encouraging as a mindset. Do you guys know what I'm talking about, like this law of attraction stuff? Okay, cool. Well, like 3 people, the rest, like, I don't care. Cool, so I learned about that, and then I started a business when I was about 16 because, like, all those books shouted at me that I should do something with my life and find my purpose, which I didn't, but I just decided I want to do something, and I learned marketing. The business failed completely, like 100%. I had my dad give me $4,000 that he had to buy me a car when I was 18. Again, I'm sorry, I didn't mention this. I'm from Bucharest, Romania, right? So I'm not from Holland. This is a place where people don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? I also have a brother that's older, much smarter, conventionally speaking as well, which is quite good because I learned a lot from him. But in any case, I started this business that failed completely with the money that my dad had to buy me a car. In my mind, I was, okay, I'm going to lose the money, but I'm going to guilt my dad into buying me a car anyways. Whoever's laughing is doing the exact same thing. So lost the money. I don't really have a car now anyways because Uber came in and just thank you, Travis. But what I learned after that business failed is I learned marketing. And I learned marketing in a way that it's called, now I know, bottom up, right? So you go to school and you have a top-down approach to learning, right? So they give you these books, these textbooks, these templates, whatever they give you. They teach you how to do something. You learn something top-down, right? They pour something in you. Here's some knowledge, kiddo. Right? And you consume it, and you kind of integrate it, and you can do it, but you don't really understand it at a meaningful and systematic level. What I did, though, because I was so against conventional school, I started to read books, but I was still very against conventional school, and still kind of am, in an irrational way, is I learned marketing bottom up. And I did this for about a year and a half, right? The business, I did that for about a year, then I learned marketing. When I came out of that business, and what I decided was, okay, I want to learn this marketing thing. It's the only thing that I was actually good at. The rest of the things, the logistics, customer support, I completely sucked because the business failed. So it had to be that I sucked at everything else. And you guys can hear me properly, by the way, right? Cool, because I can't tell. I go back and forth with this thing. And I decided, okay, I want to learn this marketing thing. I don't have any money. I have too much pride to ask my dad for more money because what's he gonna do? Not come to my wedding after? Like, I don't know. So what I decided was, okay, I'm gonna learn marketing on other people's budgets, and that felt like a really good idea in my head. And then I decided to start an agency. I called some people, and one of them was crazy enough to say yes to work with a 17-year-old that was at the time 16 and 7 months, something around that. Funnily enough, they had an agency of about 12 people working on that account, and I convinced, like Jordan Belfort my way into it. Do you guys know Wolf of Wall Street? Like, just imagine that over the phone. Like, no problem, no way, no, save your wife, this is gonna happen, and then you're gonna get a car. Like, I was bullshitting my way, basically, but I was passionate about it and honest in my own way. But if I had that recording, that would be so gold of that phone call. That was successful, and I guess the guy was tired, and he said, like, okay, I'll give these guys a break, the agency I have, and you try it. And they gave me the account, I analyzed it, and I was arrogant enough to think that I could do it better, therefore I did. And they were spending, I think, $50,000 a month or something, and were making about 6 times their money. Again, no marketing experience, no nothing, 6 months or 12 months of failing on my own store, but learning marketing. And I think 5x their results. And then he was interested, right? And I was charging the guy $1,500 a month, and he said yes in about 3 seconds, at which point I realized I was charging way too less, but that was too late. I gave them a 5 times improvement. And then I was okay. So they said they had a 12-people team working on this account, like writers, blah, 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 blah. And the guy was probably like, I'll just give this guy a shot, the owner. If he succeeds, and he's one, I'll just pay one person and not end up paying all those people. And it succeeded. And at that point, I had this kind of like realization, like, what am I doing? Because I'm not that smart. What's going on? And again, coming back to that top-down, bottom-up approach, it seemed like I was approaching things with a blank slate and just seeing what works. Fast forward, I think 6 months, I got my first US client. This was a client from Romania I was talking about. The way I got this client, I think I had about $5,000 put aside. I didn't really had this drive to like spend money, buy cars, and impress girls at the time, even though it would have made sense based on my alter ego of being cool all the time. But I didn't really want to do that. And I had $5,000, and I was really a fan of Gary Vaynerchuk at the time. Still a fan. I respect the guy, but I don't quite enjoy him as much as I used to. Do you guys know Gary Vaynerchuk? Cool. You guys should Google him. He's a blast. He's like a Tony Robbins that grew up in Brooklyn, I think. I think that's somewhat accurate. Okay, so I like this guy, and he was speaking in San Diego. Never been to the US, 17 and a half years old. I think I turned 18. God, I need to get my dates right. But you get the point. And I wanted to spend all my money to go to this conference and fly over there. And I had this intuitive feeling that if I can offer value to this guy in any way, it might be an opportunity. So I was like, okay, what if I do an interview with him? So I was like, okay, I'm a smart guy. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna do a video in which I pitch him on the interview. Then I get that video, put it on Facebook, and target his employees at VaynerMedia. He has an agency that's called VaynerMedia with about 1,000 employees at that time. And then I'm gonna target the people that liked his page, VaynerMedia as well. So I did that. Filmed the video, the pitch, like, hey, Gary, you should do an interview with me, about 3 times because it seemed like I sucked at that too, and almost consumed half of my money on making that video. That should have been an easy thing. Targeted that video to his employees and to the fans of his page. He didn't see it, but there was this other guy that had a business of about $5 million or $10 million annual run rate in Michigan that liked his page, saw the video, commented on it that I screwed up my targeting. I answered in a smart way. He hired me on the spot for about five grand a month. US client. Delivered, again, 5 times better, referred me to a bunch of other clients. I started speaking in the US, speaking in all these places, and $10 million, here we are, later. Spend though, not my money, though that would have been a lot cooler because I would have gotten a lot of Teslas. So that's the basic story. So a lot of the things I'm going to show you right now, and hopefully that was not a too long of a story, but just to give you a background, I'm not a corporate guy. Like, I'm not coming from Pepsi, here's what happened, right? Though there's a lot of really cool stuff that comes from corporate, it's really hard to be in touch with what's actually working now, right? If you want something that's working now, there's a really sweet thing that happens if you have somebody that has a lot of drive and motivation, and you just throw them in the mud and you let them figure it out. And that's basically what I did. So we've spent about, I think in the last, now we have, I think we've ended up, at one point we had 25 employees, now we have a smaller team, but we do, the team that I have currently is much more multi-talented, I think is the word. They're much smarter. So I pay them much more. I pay them 4 times as much than, so I pay 7 people as much as I pay 25, but the output is much higher, which is kind of funny. My CFO didn't agree with me, but here we are. They're actually more productive because they don't have to deal with the B and C players too. Cool. So fast forward to today, we spend close to $10 million, and one of the fundamental things that I'm going to show you today is kind of a framework, a process that we've developed that you can use in all your marketing. And it's a logical framework. It's not like a technical, empirical, methodological framework, because that would take me like 4 months to articulate. But if you have questions afterwards, I can respond to you with like the statistical significance parts and all these things. I'm not sure if you guys are data geeks or like data scientists or anything like that. Those people usually hate me because I make things too simple, but I think the simple thing is good enough. So, okay, enough of a build-up for this. Okay, that's the slides. If you guys want to take a screenshot, you'll be able to see the slides afterwards. I should do a dance while you guys took a photo. Cool? So, okay, that's me. I talked a lot about me. Here's a story that will illustrate how this process works. So this is, how many of you guys know what this bird is? Like, what's the name of the bird? Oh, I love one guy in this room. So this is a kingfisher. Now, the special thing about this kingfisher and how it relates to our marketing process that I've been building up for the last 10 minutes, God damn it, is that it has a special feature. Would you guys guess what the special feature is? What do you guys think? The beak, right? So what this bird does, and it's special, is it can fish in the water without making waves. So the reason that's good is if you're a bird and you want to fish in the water, you're going to scare away the fish if you make too many waves, right? So this bird developed this kind of cool beak, and it's kind of majestic and beautiful, which I would say it's kind of cool too. And you can see kind of the whole action, right? But this is really, really cool. Now, on the other side of the world, in 1989, a Japanese team of engineers figured out how to get one of their trains to, I think, go up to 150 miles per hour. I don't know the exact, I think 120 miles per hour or 150. But it was a groundbreaking speed at the time. The problem they had, though, with this train is when it came out of a tunnel, in a tunnel you don't have that much air, so a lot of pressure builds up with the wall. So when the train goes out of the tunnel, it creates a sonic boom. So that's a problem, because if you're in a city and you're a train and you build that much pressure with the walls in the tunnel and you get out and you make a boom, a lot of Japanese people that are sleeping at 2 p.m. are going to be mad. So we don't want to do that, because Japanese people don't want to be bothered. But the sonic boom was actually pretty noisy. So anyway, so they had this problem, and it took them 2 years. They didn't figure it out. And this was a team of very, very smart engineers that couldn't figure out this problem. So this guy thought about something else. He was a bird watcher, and he liked kingfishers. And what he thought was, why don't we look at the kingfisher and mimic the beak and put it on our train? And of course, everybody laughed for like 3 minutes, because we're engineers, we don't like that. But they tried it, and it worked. And they also took the belly of a penguin and a couple of other things, and it worked. So why did that work? It's kind of strange, right? So the answer is this guy. How many of you guys know who this guy is? Cool. Yes, this is a really smart crowd. So this is Charles Darwin before Instagram. This is no filter, hashtag. None of you are like 15. That you guys would have laughed a lot. If you were like 15, I would have said hashtag no filter. Okay, so he came with the theory of evolution, which basically says that you guys know what evolution is, right? So it's is that nature basically works in a series of he puts the way nature works is it doesn't find a solution, right? It puts out a lot of potential solutions out there with different probabilities of success, and then the ones that adapt with the environment the best win. We are one of those variables, right? Well, like none of us is perfect in the sense. Like if somebody's from Alaska, they will adapt and they will learn to have a good digestive system with fish. If somebody's from an area in the world where there's only meat, they will learn to adapt, and their digestive system throughout the hundreds of thousands of years will learn to be to adapt to eating meat. So how does this work, and how does it relate to marketing? So I can bring the point home. The way usually evolutionary systems develop traits, which a trait you could think, for example, a trait is that beak. A trait is the way you speak. A trait is the way you walk. A trait is that we use a computer. Like we develop tools and mechanisms and traits to adapt faster with the environment, right? So we have an environment, okay, and then our task is to survive and reproduce as organisms, humans, animals, everything. And what do? We go back with the environment and we try out things and we adapt until we get some traits right, until somebody figures out a tool or a trait or some sort of technique to be able to adapt to that environment. So if I'm in the savannah, let's say if I'm that bird, if I'm that kingfisher, and I need to survive, I'm in an area where there's no food outside of fish in the water. After 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 years, the only birds that will survive in that area will be birds that have developed this beak that will be able to fish in that way. Does that make sense? So the way we do marketing right now, and after a lot of consulting that's been seriously painful with bigger and smaller companies, and I usually don't like consulting at all because you can't really solve problems that way. You guys mostly know. If the team is more than 50 people, it's actually really hard to solve problems, my opinion. I don't know how to do it. There's other people that are better at that. So the way we do marketing right now is think about it. We have developed some ways of doing marketing back in the 20s, 30s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, right? And then if you look at the things that we're doing right now as marketers, right? Then you can do an index, kind of like a mental thought process when you go back home and kind of like summarize all these things that you've learned here in these 2 days of the conference. When were those things invented? 2003, 2004, 2009? Like, oh, let's just have a consistent message across all platforms so that people could recognize who we are. Let's just speak very corporate. Oh, let's just use email. Let's just do that. A lot of the things that we're doing are not adaptations to the current environment. They're actually just things that we've been doing for a long time and are continuing to do. Now, the problem with this is in the animal world, if I'm a bird and I don't develop that beak, if I don't adapt, I will go extinct. The same goes with your companies or with your marketing department. You can think of them as an organism and the market being the environment. And the faster you can look at these two systems and see what are the ways in which I can adapt faster, and the faster you'll be able to actually survive for longer periods of time, because that's the purpose of an evolutionary system. It's not to win, it's to survive. That's actually game theory. There's finite games and infinite games. Finite games, for example, it's like a game of soccer. The goal is to win in a finite game because it's finite. It takes 90 minutes or whatever, right? In an infinite game or infinite game, the goal is just to last, just to survive. Evolution is an infinite game. Life is an infinite game. But we're playing infinite games like they're finite games. Does that make sense? The companies that we are all in right now, most of them, the goal for them is to survive as long as possible. For some of you, is to exit as fast as possible and to maximize short-term value for shareholders and things like that. I do get that. But for most companies, it's to survive. So we're playing that like it's a finite game. In any case, this is how that works. So for marketing, you go back with the market, you get data, hopefully, right? I don't know. I was talking with this engineer, and he told me, I'm going to quit my job. It takes me 4 months. No, with his marketing director. It takes me 4 months to gather all the data for the marketing department to analyze it. By the time they do that, right? So the feedback loop is 4 months to gather the data from the market. By the time they analyze it, it's irrelevant already, right? And the problem with this is that the market, the environment, is growing at an exponential pace. The behavior of every one of us is changing so fast that if we don't find ways to shorten those feedback loops, and in our case with marketing, it's mostly data, but it could be some other forms of things like empirical things like interviews and maybe some other forms, then you're going to go extinct. Now, okay, you're a scary guy, Catalin. Tell me some good stuff I could do. Okay, so the problem with biological systems is they can go faster. Like our genes can't go faster. They're just biologically restricted. We have certain DNA. The way it works is it takes 100,000 years. Just imagine, how many of you have a Mac or like an Apple product? Okay, just imagine like the conference would be like, hey guys, in 94,000 years you'll have a new update, right? I don't know, customers will probably be very mad. Not me though, because I'm an addict. Okay, so a point from this is your ability to shorten the feedback loop between you and the market or your customers or whatever it is, it's more important than having really good ideas and really good tactics. And we're going to discuss some tactics at the end, and I would like to go back and forth with you guys with some questions and kind of challenges you have. But those most of the time are not relevant. Doing ManyChat now is not relevant. Doing this new sort of doing Reddit or podcasting or YouTube is not that relevant, because if you don't have this system in place that you continuously adapt and evolve, it doesn't matter. It's only going to last for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, right? Which is fine, right? But it's the same approach of investing. Like, do you want to be opportunistic and kind of like bet on the market whenever it's hot and whatever? Or do you want to be Charlie Munger and make 3 decisions a year and be a billionaire by 82? I don't know. Well, both of those have pros and cons. Okay, so adaptability, your ability to put out a lot of things and be fast, it's much more important than ideas and having great solutions. So process is more important than ideas. Okay, I'm going to go fast through this. The cost of mostly everything. How many of you guys are spending on paid ads? I'm assuming most of you, right? Cool. Okay, how many of you are not spending anything on paid advertising? What are you guys doing? Okay. So you're not, for B2B acquisition, you're not doing any paid, it's just referral and organic, right? Cool. And what about you?
I'm a game inventor.
Game inventor. You're cool, dude. Are you from here? From okay. Who's from the Netherlands? It's like 2 more people, right? The only person from Netherlands is a game inventor. God. This is great. So costs are rising up with most of the advertising, and if you extrapolate this with time, and if you look at your bottom line, you can see your bottom line shrinking and your costs increasing. Does that make sense? So right now, if you sell something for $10, it costs you $2, your profit is $5, it costs you $2 to sell it, and then your profit is $5. If you extrapolate 5 years into the future, what's going to happen? You're going to have $2 left, $1 left, right? Because chances are you're not going to be able to increase your prices without operational efficiency, innovation, and all sorts of other stuff. So the economics of betting your business on paid acquisition is not smart. Even though we spend a lot of advertising, having that as your core strategy, it's a problem. How many of you, if you would shut off all your ads, would have a problem in 60 days? Or sooner? Okay. How many of you... Cool. So we have that. The way these work is there's supply and demand. So the more people pay for ads, the higher the cost, right? This is all common sense. Profit with time goes to zero. I already said that was the solution. You can either be, so the solution is to develop a process like this and to be able to go with the market. And more specifically, you could be better. So you can have a faster train. That's one way. Or you could be different. Well, not that different, but you can invent, so let's stick with ways of transportation. You can have a faster train, that's being better. You can have new ways of optimizing your ads. You can have better creative, you can have better copy, you can have better optimization, you can have better budgeting, whatever it is you're doing. Or you can be different, right? In ways of transportation, you can invent a rocket. You know the thing that Elon Musk, well, he's gonna come up with it in like 5 years, but he kind of like pitched it, that is gonna go out in space and you can do like 2 hours from Hong Kong to New York. Do you guys know the thing? You should watch like Rocket. Yeah, it's like he's using the rockets that you would normally go into space and you can go out of the orbit and then go back on Earth. And you can use it like a kind of a replacement for the airplane. And it takes an hour and a half to go from anywhere to anywhere, or 2 hours. So that's different, right? So he's not inventing a faster train, he's inventing something else. The way you're different in social is you're watching the market, you're watching where the opportunity is. By opportunity, I mean where there's a good supply and demand that you can tap into, right? Are people using LinkedIn? For the ones of you in B2B, right now LinkedIn is a huge, 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 huge opportunity. Even the organic reach. Why is it a huge opportunity? Because there's a lot of people that are on LinkedIn that want to consume content. Technical terms, that means there's a lot of impressions available to be spent, because a person to LinkedIn is a number of impressions per day, right? That's how usually they reduce us, to a number of impressions. So LinkedIn is a huge opportunity because there's a huge number of impressions that are available to be consumed every day, but there's not a lot of people spending to reach those people or creating enough even organic content to reach those people. So you can see how the question about content quality or quality or quantity starts to be able to be responded here. Because if you have LinkedIn, then you can push out a lot of content and have quantity because there's a lack of content on the platform, and your content will get published and seen anyways. Now, if there's a lot of competition, like on Facebook, and Instagram is kind of in the middle. You can see like YouTube, Facebook is high competition right now. I would say YouTube is the highest, Facebook, kind of like Instagram, and then LinkedIn. Well, and there's some other ones, but let's just keep it like that. On YouTube, the quality of content that you need to put out in order to strike out of the crowd is much, much higher. Why? Because the supply and demand is much, much different. There's a lot more supply. There's a lot more demand for the supply that's available, right? So you need to compete for the same impressions. So that's how you decide on quantity or quality with your content or ads. You see if this is a platform where that's the case, and then you decide based on that. Okay, how can you be better in your ad process? Is it making sense till now? Because I can stop, and if not, and go home. Okay, so I'm going to show you the process framework that I've been talking about, and this is just the logical framework again, and I can give you the statistical significant ones if you want. Just real quick, this guy said something really smart. He said that in business compared to real life, you have a chance of getting a 10,000 ROI to 1. So for example, if you're playing baseball, the maximum of points that you can score is some number. I actually don't know baseball that much, but it's limited. There's a cap to your maximum result that you can get, right? Let's say it's 10 points. In business, if you score, you can get 20,000 points. You can get 1,000,000 points. You can get 1,000,000,000 points. So it goes back to the point of it's actually worth to try out more shots than to have better accuracy at your shots. Does that make sense? So it actually doesn't make sense to have a better ManyChat, to have the best ManyChat strategy or the best Facebook strategy. It just makes sense to try out more things than others and have a way for you to learn based on what you're trying out. And with time, you're going to outcompete them. You're going to be better than them. So this is something that our brain cannot recognize. Our brain, like try to imagine 1,000,000 people. You can't, right? Our brain has never had the problem of needing to imagine how 1,000,000 people look like. The same way you cannot imagine that you can get a 10 million a return on investment on your $1. You just can't, right? You can't imagine that number. So that's why we usually go for these realistic things that we can touch, because that's how our brains are wired. Okay, so what you want to do is have ideas and goals that goes into your marketing machine, and you have outcomes. And then your outcomes, you get back to your ideas and goals, and then you go again. And this is how this looks like. There's 4 steps to the process, and this is based mostly in the scientific method, but change the numbers a little bit, change the words a little bit. So you have discovery, strategy, implementation, analysis, and then you adapt and start again. And that's how it should look like. So you start, you evolve, you go back to analyze, and then you go back again. You go up again. And you can see how that's that's an ever-increasing positive feedback loop into infinity, which is profit and success for all of you guys. Okay. This is technical stuff, bear with me, but it's important. So discovery, step 1. You have a point A, you have a point B. You need to understand both of them. You need to understand where you're at really, really well, and I'm going to go into what that means. And you need to understand where you're going really, really well. Most of the times this is, so you can see point A, point B. You have a goal, which is point B. You define it, and then you have KPIs, key performance indicators, to know if you're on track. The same with a GPS, right, or with the thermostat. It says, okay, it's 72 degrees. It should be 69. Error correct. Go back on track. So that's a KPI. Then you create a strategy. So you know your point A, your point B, then you create a strategy. And what the strategy is you look at your point A, point B, and you imagine what is the best series of steps that I could do to get from point A to point B. And this is most of the times all imagination. And the more time you spend on the strategy side, the more time you waste, usually. I've seen this happen over and over. I just had a friend that had this startup and has spent, I think, 12 solid months thinking about the product, and they did 5 interviews with customers, went back to straight to level 0. Does that make sense? So our ability to think is too limited for us to be able to comprehend all the complexity of the world. So we might as well go in the market and adapt from them. So I'm going to tell you what that means in a second. What a strategy is created most of the time is things that we know work and things that we don't will work, but we want to try. Does that make sense? The things that we know are working, technically you can call them, scientifically you can call them theories, right? These are the scientific papers. We have done this experiment and we know that if we show people, if we give them $1 and with the chance to lose 2, they'll not take the chance because they fear more losing the $2 than gaining 1, whatever. So that's a theory. Then you have hypotheses. These are the things that you don't know work. These are your experiments, but you want to try them out. Then what you do is, well, you implement the first milestone. So point A, point B, you have A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, point B. So you implement the first milestone. And then you analyze what happened, you gather the data, and this is where most of the time is lost. You analyze and draw conclusions, and you act on conclusions. Now the point is, and I'm going to finish in about 3 minutes. I'm not sure how much time I have. What's the time? Okay, 10 minutes. I'm going to finish in 2 minutes, and we're going to go to questions on this. What's the key on this is not how accurate you are at doing them, but how fast you're doing them. Does that make sense? So if you can put up a strategy in a day, implement it in another day, analyze it in 3 hours, and go back again, that's a lot better than 3 months for the strategy, 3 months for the execution, and then let me work, I'm an engineer, I need 3 months to gather this data, right? That's a lot better because it's a reinforcing feedback loop. I've said this a couple of times. Okay, discovery, Allbirds. This is an example. You can go through the slides after that, and you can look at it. This is a proper example with Allbirds. I love Allbirds. It's like a shoe company. I'm not sure if you guys know them or if they're in the Netherlands, but they're great. So usually in point A, you have details such as customer profile, what's their details, product marketing, what's the customer journey, what are their numbers, right? So you can have all those things. And let's say they're selling 800,000 shoes a year at $25 each, and their lifetime value is $250. How many of you are not familiar with what these metrics are? Most of you are, I'm assuming, right? Cool. And that's their details. Now, let's say their point B is to increase revenue to 100 million in 2020, which is 25% increase. They've done 80, if you do the math. Oh, yeah, it's right there. At $25 CPA, so the same CPA, At $350 lifetime value, which is $100 higher, $100 higher, which is 40% increase, and sell more volume, because if you do the math, that's what they need to do. So I have a point A, I have a point B, I know how to get there, and I know how to track my way getting there. Simple. This is similar to OKRs. How many of you do OKRs in your company? Similar, very similar. Objectives, key results. They're just different names, because we like to invent stuff. Okay, the strategy, fairly simple. If we do an ad asking our customers their experience with the product, we will acquire new customers at $15. And if we show personalized ads when they have a birthday coming, we will acquire new orders at $10. Two simple hypotheses. And you can see they're like, if I do this, then this will happen. Simple framework. And here's how that will impact my KPI or my goal. This is Francis Bacon, who invented the scientific method. I'm not going to go through this. Okay. The way you come up with your hypotheses is with this process. The strategy step, you can break it down in these three. You have some goals and KPIs, you create your hypotheses, you filter them by priority, impact, whatever you have, and then you decide on the best mix for you. And this is like, same with investing. You have a risk appetite. If you're spending $1 million right now, and everything is working well, you have more appetite to risk. Right? You have more appetite to have a higher percentage of the things that you're doing to be hypotheses, to be things that you don't know will work. Does that make sense? Because that's the better thing to do. But based on how well your stuff is working right now, you're gonna do more of the stuff that you know works, or more of the stuff that you know doesn't work. And this is a mix you need to figure out. And there's some formulas I have for this, but they're not worth talking about now. And then you create the plan. And what you need to do is have them in a similar structure to this. If I do this to target audience or other variables, then this will happen. And these are a list of variables that you can have in your hypothesis. If I try this placement, if I try this channel, if I try this message, if I try this length of the video, if I try this optimization, if I try ads for Black Friday this time, or if I try an ad for Prime Day this way. So you can have variables at the micro level, which is usually at the channel level, or you can have the macro level. This list is like 25 pages, but this is a good summary. So you can build your hypotheses with this. And when you're having meetings, if you want to implement this in your company or in your agency, whatever it is, again, logical framework, you can start in a very simple way. You can have a list of variables, and whenever somebody has an idea, you ask them back, hey, let's do this video with a helicopter, and it will drop, and then it will do this, and Madonna will come out, and then it will sell a bunch of sneakers. Cool, John. Now, here's the deal. The problem with that is, what's your variable? You're saying, if we're going to have this type of creative that involves this, what will happen with that? Well, I don't know, but it's a cool video. Well, is that affecting our KPIs? Is that affecting our goals? If we do that video with Madonna, it's going to cost us $1 million. Is it going to get us $10 million more? If the answer is yes, then you can't do it anyways because it's too big of a test. You always need to have your hypotheses to be willing to be able to test them very cheaply. $50, $100, $1,000, $500, not 10 million, John. We talked about this. Implementation. My team set up these two ads for you guys so you can actually see how they look like. So the hypotheses we had, we're going to ask them for a review, and then this is for their birthday coming. They actually created them. So kind of cool. Thank you, team. And just for you guys to be able to see the example. Analysis, we analyze them, and this is all hypothetical. We don't work with Alberts because I wouldn't be able to show you numbers if I did. And we can see, okay, the results of the first hypothesis, the one with the birthday had $12 CPA, which is good. We added to the stuff that we know works, and we're going to use it in the future. The other one didn't work at all. We added to the archive of the things that don't work. And the things that don't work are actually, that's a list in your document that's actually even more important than the list of the things that you do not work. Because, for example, in academia, what a lot of people do is they spend a lot of money on research that has been done, but it's so hard to find, they just redo it. Does that make sense? So in marketing, we do the same thing. And another problem we have in marketing that's not in programming is in the computer science world, you have GitHub, you have all these things, and people are sharing knowledge with each other. Here, if you have 10 clients and you're learning a lot of things from those 10 clients, nobody else knows, right? So everybody else is trying out the same things and coming up to the same conclusions, but with time. So everybody's spending a bunch of resources, right? If I figured out how to do an engine, why don't we share that engine? Why does everybody else has to come up with an engine? That's basically how marketing is done right now, which is a macro problem. Okay, so you do that, you add it to your best practices or non-best practices, your archive. And excuse me for the mistake. You can also improve your workflows and all these things, but that's not as important. That's it. I'll stop right there. I have some theories. Do I have 5 more minutes? I would like to do questions. Yes. Okay. Was that helpful? What I would like you guys as a conclusion to get from this, and you can look at the slides more carefully afterwards, is one, you need to start to think of your company as an organism, right? So as if you're an organism, if you're not a company, the goal is to survive and reproduce, right? Or to survive for as long as possible. Now, how do you do that? The way you do that is you look at the feedback that you're getting from your environment, in your case, the market, and your goal is to make those as short as possible, not to increase your accuracy. Cool? So you need to look at your business and see your processes, how long those things take. Do not worry about their accuracy. Do not worry about having good ideas. Just make them shorter. And you're going to see how unbelievable this is, because it's also unbelievable for us. If we have shorter feedback loops, we act faster, and we are actually more engaged in our marketing. I've actually seen this, like marketing teams actually have, like, the level of engagement that they have when they get feedback in a day, when the designer sees the performance of their ads, is just incredible, right? So they start coming up with ideas and everything. But if you come back with feedback after like 9 months, none of the things are going to work. So that's it. Was this helpful? Cool. Let's do some questions. We can talk about anything social media marketing related, whatever you guys want, and then I'll be out for a while if you guys wanna chat about everything. I'm starting to have a problem with my throat, but I guess I'll survive for the next 5 minutes. So, what do you guys think? Let's go through some questions that you guys might have, or things that you guys are wondering. You can raise your hand. Yes,
Any
sir.
questions, guys?
Yeah, let's wait for that thing because it's funnier. Yes.
So I was wondering, could you shed some light about what book I should read that you think is the best? In
like
terms
the
of
best book, like
well, no, I studied psychology. And,
yes, sir.
I like to hear from you.
Like psychotherapy, or
no?
That was not a joke, actually.
Organizational psychology.
Oh,
So
cool.
I was trained to be a consultant, actually. But,
Cool.
I really like the book from Stafford Beer,
Yes.
Viable Systems Model. Do you know
Yeah.
this one?
I've not read it. I've not
Okay.
read it, but I know the guy. I know the guy.
It's pretty hard to read it. I read it about 4 times, like you did when you were 16.
No, I
with your first book.
read it like 20, but
But I was wondering what kind of book, in terms of psychology used in marketing, would you?
yeah. So I'd say for a marketer, the best skill they can learn is psychology. Just, well, increasingly so in marketing. And I would say my top books are the following: Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, Skin in the Game from Thaler. No, not Thaler. Skin in the Game. And there's a Lebanese guy, incredibly smart, that wrote the book, and all his books as well. And also the textbooks, everything from Dr. David Buss, the evolutionary psychologist. His best book is called Evolutionary Psychology. It's like $100. But God, it's like so amazing. Ooh, it's incredible. It's incredible. But you need to be able to play by analogy. You need to be able to extract what they're telling you in those books, which is inherently principles of psychology, and you need to be able to see how can we apply this in what we're doing. Because they're not going to tell you this is how you're going to do an ad, or you're going to figure it out. But the thing about marketing that I like is you can take little ideas from that, and you can figure out $50 experiments that you can see if those are working. And for me, that's kind of like a 2019 mad scientist model, and I actually do enjoy that quite a lot. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
I would say those books. Yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend reading Viable Systems Model, because it's actually also saying an organization is an organism. But to the guy he was doing math.
Like multidisciplinary approach.
Yeah, he did a lot of things
Yeah.
before he started to write these books. But then
Yeah.
he would say a team in an organization is an organism. The organization itself is an organism, and also within in your own body, you have more than one organisms inside organisms, like boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, like a matrushka.
That's very cool, right?
Yeah.
The cool thing, so let's get one more question from somebody else. Thank you so much.
Yep.
The good thing about that is if nature took like 5 billion years to figure it out, why would you try to come up with a new solution? Right? Like if you want to have a lot of fun and if you want to make your boyfriend or girlfriend think that you got really crazy, study ants tonight on YouTube. Like just like how ants organize. And you'll see like the craziness, complexity that they have in organizing or bees. I told you I should study ants. I don't know what you're talking about. Study ants, right? And so the hypotheses are, if nature took billions of years to figure it out, you won't come up with a better way. Just stop, right? Next thing, if you want to find solutions, look at the things that have been around for longer, right? So biology, physics, right? They've been there since the beginning of time. Well, supposedly physics was first and then biology, but let's just keep it there. Close, fair game. So you can look at them and by analogy figure out solutions for your life. Now this is not straightforward and it's not, here's how you do ManyChat and whatever. I know those are more helpful in the short term, but they won't really help you. Let's do one more question.
I've got a question. Oh no, you go over there.
I'll answer yours too.
No, that's fine.
What's your name?
Jessica.
Nice to meet you, Jessica.
Nice to meet you. Could you please describe an example of something you worked on for a niche company, niche industry?
Yes.
B2B. What media
With 4
did you,
employees and
No.
$140,000 in revenue?
What media did you choose to work with? Well, some details about a campaign you put together.
So B2B, small, niche, here's the strategy I would recommend. This. So you have a list of prospects in your niche business, like 1,000, 100, 500 people, whatever the stakeholders are. You have a spreadsheet, that's a spreadsheet icon, of those people. And then what you do is you don't do conventional sales, because that's what most companies do when they have a small target market. They do sales and just call them up and annoy them out of their minds. So you have a spreadsheet with those people. You target them with ads on LinkedIn, you create content and tag them on LinkedIn, and you also start a podcast for surgeons in London area that are specialized in noses. I don't know your niche, but what's the niche?
Well, we're manufacturing spectrophotometers to measure color, so it's very, very specific.
Manufacturing for?
For the industry, all type of industries, we measure and control color.
Color.
So, yeah, we're talking.
God.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Manufacturing podcast. I've never seen one of those things.
It's
But
pretty
you can maybe get it more specific. Who's your target market? Like what's their job title?
Quality managers, production managers. There's very technical guys.
I would make a podcast like for quality managers, right? Here's this guys. These guys are selling education for engineers, and what they're doing is they have very niche podcasts. For example, they have one for VP of engineering because they sell to VP of engineering, and it's called Engineering People Podcast, and nobody listens to it outside of VP of engineering people. But because it's so specific, when I invite you on, you're like, heck yeah, it's VP of engineering, target market, I'm a VP, I feel cool, I'll come on. So what you do is you try to figure out a way to start a podcast and make it as entertaining as you can for that specific niche. You invite those people on, they're gonna say yes because they have an ego and nobody calls them on a podcast. Joe Rogan has no idea what's going on in manufacturing, don't worry. Do you know Joe Rogan? Or am I making a bad joke?
No, that's fine.
Cool. You know Joe Rogan or not?
No.
How can you not know Joe Rogan? Okay, I'm going to stop. So LinkedIn, you have the list of prospects. I would suggest you start a podcast. I know that might seem frightening. If it's frightening, email me. I send you the list of exact things you need to do to start a podcast in 4 hours with $1,000 or less. And target them on LinkedIn on ads. And what you're going to find is in 6 months or 12 months, when you call them, they're going to know who you are. And they're going to have a rapport with you. And they're going to choose you over somebody else. And in your business, I'm pretty sure that the average contract size is more than $10,000, right? So if you get 1 more customer a year, 2 more customers per year, it pays off for listening to quality managers for 24 hours on a podcast, right? So that's what I would recommend for niche businesses. Is that helpful at all?
Yeah, very. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. One more question or we're out? You let me know. Okay, cool. One more question if you can. I'm super happy that I had the slides prepared for your question. That's kind of weird. One more. Let's do something like, if you think what you're doing is special and what I talked about wasn't specific to you, I would love a question from you. Does that make sense? Maybe you. I don't know, you seemed kind of defensive. I thought wasn't not really helpful. What do you do? What do you work in? What's your business? Like digital transformation. So you're the guy that knows to do what I don't do, because I can't do that.
Well, no, I look at companies and then see where I can implement technology and doing also marketing.
Do you know Salim Ismail, Singularity University?
Sorry.
Happy birthday to you.
Yeah. What's going on there?
Cool. So, do you have any, dude? What's going on?
I don't know. Sorry.
Do you have any challenges specifically, or any goals, or you're cool? I don't like it, dude. No, I'm talking like this is what you would say. I actually like you. Cool. Do you want to do one more question, or we're good? Cool. Let's do this. I have. You're gonna see these in the slides. There are a couple of techniques that I don't like to talk about. So these are my contacts if you want to reach out to me by any means. I have a podcast. I've interviewed Robert Kiyosaki, Bob Proctor, a couple of other things. So the advice I'm giving you, I've done it. I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing to do what you're saying. Thank God. So you can follow me on there. And if there's anything specific that you'd like help with, I'd love to help. I'm actually, we mostly do personal branding with what we're doing in our company, and some e-commerce and SaaS. So I'd love to be as helpful as possible because, I mean, for the next 6 months, we're not going to be able to take in any clients anyways, just because we're small. You guys are cool. We're just really small. So that's it. Hope this was helpful. I'll be around for a bit, and hope you guys implement this. And if you do, email me, and I'll send you $1,000 or something. Cool. Thank you so much.